The first time I saw her, she wasn't smiling. She was standing behind the reception counter, tying her hair up with a black band, sleeves rolled to her elbows, a clipboard pressed against her chest. The morning light from the window stretched across the clinic floor, catching the thin strands of gray in her hair like faint silver threads. I remember thinking how unfair it was. That someone could look that calm, that composed, at 9 in the morning. Her name tag said, Mira, physical therapist. I'd been sent here after the accident. A few months of sessions to get my shoulder back to normal. My mother had recommended her, which already made things weird. She's the best in town, she'd said, like I was going to the dentist. Mira looked up when I walked in. You're early, she said, voice low and even. I wasn't sure about parking, I replied, which was true. But not the reason. She nodded, then looked back down at her clipboard. You can wait in there, she said. Gesturing toward a small room with a padded table and 2 bright lights, I went in. The air smelled faintly of eucalyptus and clean cotton. On the far wall, a clock ticked too loudly. I sat, scrolling through my phone out of habit. There were 3 unsent texts in my drafts, 1 to my ex, 1 to my professor, 1 to no one, just words I'd never say out loud. When Mira came in, she was carrying a folder. Daniel, she said, like reading from a script. Right shoulder injury, 2 months post-surgery. Yeah, pain. Only when I try to do too much. Which is how often. I smiled faintly. Every day. That got the smallest flicker from her. The corner of her mouth twitching before she caught it. We started simple that first session. Her hands were careful, deliberate. She explained each movement, but her voice went soft when she touched my shoulder, like she didn't want to disturb the air between us. I focused on the clock, on the sound of latex gloves, on not noticing how close she was. She asked about my studies, architecture. I asked about her work. She'd been doing this for almost 15 years. I didn't ask if she liked it. I already knew. You could tell by how quietly she moved, how she arranged things after each patient, like restoring order to her own thoughts. After the session, she handed me a small paper with exercises. Don't rush recovery, she said. You're young. You think time is a thing you can wrestle. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. She smiled this time. Barely, but it stayed a moment longer than before. I left the clinic and walked to the cafe across the street. I ordered the same thing I always did, black coffee, no sugar. The barista asked if I wanted my usual seat by the window. I said yes. Through the glass I could see Mira locking up for lunch. She tucked her hair behind her ear and took a sip from a thermos. Probably tea. Then she looked up, scanning the street. For a second our eyes met. Not long enough to mean something, but not short enough to mean nothing. I looked away first. Later that night, while typing up an assignment, my phone buzzed. A new message, from an unknown number. Don't forget to ice the shoulder tonight. I started typing back, then stopped. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Instead, I just saved her number. And for some reason I couldn't explain, I read that message 3 times before turning off the light. By the 3rd week, our sessions had stopped feeling like appointments. They felt like pauses, like time between things. I'd come in early sometimes, pretending I'd misread the schedule. She never called me out on it. She'd just nod toward the waiting room and say, "You can make tea if you want. Kettle's in the back." It became a quiet ritual. I'd boil water while she finished paperwork. Sometimes she'd hum, barely audible, some tune I couldn't name. The air always smelled faintly of mint from the ointments she used. One afternoon, while I stirred the tea, I noticed a framed photo on the counter. A younger Mira, standing beside a man and a teenage girl. She must have caught my stare because she said, without looking up, "My daughter's in university now. Architecture, like you." Her tone was light, but her hand stilled mid-note on the page she was writing. "She's in London," she added, softer. "Says she won't come back to small towns." I nodded, unsure if she wanted a response. "She sounds smart," I said. Mira smiled faintly. Too smart to text her mother back. There was something about the way she said it, not bitter, just tired. That made my chest tighten. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. She moved on, asked about my shoulder, and the conversation folded itself away like it had never happened. During therapy, She guided my arm slowly through a stretch. Relax, she murmured. I am relaxed, I said. She gave a small laugh. You're holding your breath, I exhaled, and her hand lingered on my shoulder a second too long. The air between us changed, denser, charged. She noticed it too. Her eyes flicked up then away. She stepped back, cleared her throat. You're doing well, she said briskly, pretending to check my form. You'll be ready to stop sessions soon. For some reason that made something in me sink. Already. You're healing fast. I almost said, I'm not in a hurry. But I bit it back. Afterward she handed me the thermos I usually made tea in, for home, she said. You keep drinking the wrong kind of stuff. It was a small thing. A steel thermos, still warm in my hands. But it felt heavier than it should have. I caught her eye and tried to smile. You always take care of your patients like this. Her lips curved, barely. Only the stubborn ones. That night, I put the thermos on my desk beside my laptop. It kept the tea warm for hours, though I barely touched it. Every time I glanced at it, I thought of her hands wrapping it, her voice saying that line. I didn't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It was raining the afternoon. Everything changed. Not heavy. Just that kind of steady drizzle that makes the whole world sound like it's whispering. I'd come early again, though this time the door was locked. Through the window, I saw Mira cleaning one of the treatment tables, her hair a little undone, her sleeves damp from wiping things down. She looked different. Not composed. Just tired in a way that made her seem more real. She saw me and unlocked the door with a faint smile. You don't know how to wait, do you? I thought you liked early patients. I said I tolerate them. Her tone was playful, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of warmth that she didn't bother to hide this time. The session started normally, stretch, resistance band, ice. But something in the rhythm was off, like we were both too aware of the space between movements. Her hand brushed my arm when she adjusted my posture, and neither of us moved right away. You're tensing again, she said softly. Maybe it's not the shoulder, I murmured before I could stop myself. She looked up. For a second, neither of us breathed. Then she stepped back, fingers fidgeting with the strap of her watch. Daniel, she said quietly, you need to be careful. I nodded, pretending not to understand. But I did. Every word of it. Later, while she filled out my progress sheet, the door opened. One of her colleagues, a younger therapist with a bright voice. Hey Mira, Dr. Lang called about your patient file. The woman stopped mid-sentence, eyes flicking between us. Oh, sorry, didn't realize you were still in session. Mira smiled quickly, all professionalism again. It's fine, just finishing up. The woman nodded and left, but the silence after she closed the door felt different. Like the air had been punctured. Mira sighed, rubbing her temple. People talk, you know. I stared at the floor. About what? About whatever they want to fill their day with. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter. That we hadn't done anything wrong, but the truth hung there. We both knew how thin the line was. When she finished writing, she looked at me again, softer now. You're healing well, she said. Maybe we can reduce sessions to once a week. It was logical, sensible, the right call, and somehow it hurt more than I expected. Sure, I said, voice tight. Whatever you think's best. She hesitated, then reached out. Not a full touch, just her fingers brushing the back of my hand as she handed over the paper. It was the smallest contact, but my pulse jumped like she'd whispered something forbidden. For a moment, her thumb lingered near my skin. Just a second too long. Then she pulled back, folding her hands behind her. The rain outside had stopped, but the room still felt like it was holding its breath. If she'd said my name then, I think I would have said hers. But she didn't, and neither did I. For a week, I didn't see her. Mira texted once, clean it closed for maintenance. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just distance written in polite language. I tried not to care, told myself I was being dramatic. But every evening, I'd find myself walking past the clinic window anyway, pretending to be on my way somewhere else. The lights were off, always off. On Friday she called. Your progress report's ready, she said. You can pick it up tomorrow. Late afternoon if that's easier. Her voice sounded different, careful, like she'd rehearsed each word. When I arrived, the clinic was empty. She sat at her desk, a half-finished mug of tea beside a stack of files. The smell of lemon disinfectant hung in the air. You could have just emailed it, I said. I could have, she answered, not looking up. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked. The air conditioner hummed. Then she sighed, pushed the papers aside, and leaned back in her chair. This is getting complicated, she said quietly. I didn't answer. She finally looked at me, eyes tired, but honest. You're young, Daniel. You should be spending your days with people who don't have to stop themselves from saying things. There was a small tremor in her voice on that last line. I caught it, and so did she. Her eyes flicked away fast. I sat down across from her. Is that what you've been doing, stopping yourself? That made her laugh, low, sad. Every day. We sat in that truth for a while, both pretending to study the same empty spot on the table. Outside, someone passed by humming. The sound floated in through the window, then faded. I wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that it wasn't about age, or right, or wrong. But the words wouldn't come out clean. She stood, walked to the window, arms folded. You think this is some kind of story, don't you? The older woman, the boy who… It's not that, I cut in. Then what is it? Her voice wasn't angry, just raw. Like she was asking herself as much as me. I walked over, stopping a few feet behind her. I don't know, maybe it's just something I don't want to unfeel yet. She turned, and for the first time, she didn't hide it. The look, the conflict, the wanting. Her eyes searched mine, steady but fragile. You shouldn't say things like that, she whispered. Then maybe you shouldn't look at me like that, I said back, quietly. For a moment, neither of us moved. The rain outside had started again, soft against the window. Her hand twitched at her side, almost reaching then retreating. Mara, I said barely above a breath. She blinked, as if waking up. Took a slow step back. I can't cross this line, she said, almost to herself. And I don't know what made me say it. Maybe the silence. Maybe everything that had been building for weeks. But I heard myself whisper. Then I'll cross it for you. The air froze. She looked at me like she was trying to remember how to breathe. And before either of us could say another word, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Someone calling her name. She turned away. I stepped back. The moment passed. But the question, the one we hadn't asked, stayed. She canceled again. No reason this time. Just a short message. Something came up. I'll reschedule when I can. That was 2 weeks ago. I stopped going by the clinic window after the 5th day. Stopped checking if the blinds were open. Stopped pretending I didn't care. Except I did. I cared too much. At first, I thought she was avoiding me because of what I said, the line, the whisper, the silence that followed. But then, when my mother mentioned in passing that Mira's daughter had come home, for a bit, everything shifted. Her daughter. The same one in the photo on the counter, the same age as me. It made sense then. Why she'd pulled back. Why she'd sounded distant. Why she couldn't even look at me when I dropped off the final forms. Still, I kept expecting a message, a reason, something. But all I got was quiet. One morning, out of habit, I walked into the cafe across from her clinic. The barista smiled. Haven't seen you in a while, she said. Your usual. I nodded. But the seat by the window, the one where I used to watch her cross the street, was taken. A man in a navy coat sat there, scrolling through his phone. I picked a table in the corner instead. From where I sat I could still see the clinic door, closed. Halfway through my coffee, I saw her. She was standing outside, under an umbrella, her daughter beside her, tall, confident with the same dark hair. They were laughing about something. Mira's hand was on the girl's shoulder, and she looked lighter. I watched them cross the street together, the umbrella tilting as they leaned in close. I waited for her to glance toward the cafe, to notice me. She didn't. For a moment I felt ridiculous. Like I'd built something out of silence and half-looks, and now it had vanished in daylight. I thought about walking out, about saying something, anything, but the idea felt wrong, selfish. When I finally looked down at my phone, there was a draft open I didn't remember typing. Hope you're doing okay. Didn't mean to make things harder. My thumb hovered over send. Then I deleted it. Outside, the rain had stopped again. The street was clear, washed clean. Mira and her daughter were already gone. I stayed until my coffee went cold, staring at the empty seat by the window. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. That night, when I got home, I placed the thermos she'd given me in the cupboard, behind everything else, where I wouldn't see it. But somehow, I knew it was still warm inside. She called again after a month. Her voice was steady, but I could hear something underneath it. Hesitation, maybe guilt. "Your discharge papers are ready," she said. "It's best if we do one final checkup, just to close the file properly." The phrasing made it sound like paperwork, but I knew it wasn't. I almost said no, then I didn't. When I walked into the clinic, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No music playing, no other patients. The blinds were half open, letting in that pale winter light that makes everything look like it's remembering summer. Mira was at her desk, hair pulled back loosely, reading something she wasn't really reading. She looked up and smiled, small, careful. "Hi," she said. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then she gestured toward the table. "Let's check your range of motion." The session went through the motions. Rotation, lift, stretch. All the things we'd done 100 times. But her hands were different now, lighter, almost trembling. She didn't explain each move anymore. She just watched. When it was over, she scribbled something on a form, then set the pen down. "You're fully recovered," she said quietly. "That's good." "Yes, it is." But neither of us sounded convinced. I leaned back against the counter. "Your daughter doing okay?" Her eyes flickered, surprised. "She went back last week, London." "That's good," I said again, though I didn't mean it that way. She gave a faint laugh. "You really need to find a new word." I smiled, then disappeared. The air shifted, subtle, but sharp. "I needed to," she said. "It wasn't fair to either of us." "Fairness doesn't always matter," I said. "Sometimes it's just real." She sighed, rubbing her wrist. "Real doesn't mean right." There was nothing left to argue with. Just silence. Heavy, honest, unfixable. I stood, not ready to leave but out of reasons to stay. "So that's it." "Less," she said. Then, after a beat, "Unless you want to stay for tea." It sounded casual, but her voice cracked just enough to ruin the illusion. I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." We sat at her small desk, 2 mugs between us, steam rising in thin curls. She poured too much sugar into hers. I didn't say anything. After a while, she said, "You remind me of when I was still hopeful." I looked up. "That's not fair, no," she said softly. "But it's true." Her eyes met mine, steady, unguarded. No pretending now. Just 2 people standing in the middle of something that couldn't survive daylight. I reached out, resting my hand on the table, not touching hers, just near enough. She didn't move it away. A long pause. Then she smiled, tired, beautiful, final. "Okay," she whispered. That was all. No promises, no confessions. Just that one word, soft enough to mean goodbye. A year passed before I saw her again. Not at the clinic, she'd closed that down. Apparently. A friend mentioned she'd started consulting from home, fewer patients, slower pace. Semi-retired, they called it. I wondered what that word meant to her. Slowing down or finally breathing. I saw her one morning at the cafe across from the old clinic. The one where I used to sit by the window, pretending I wasn't waiting for her to pass by. It was a quiet Tuesday, 84:07 a.m., same seat, same black coffee. She walked in holding that same steel thermos. For a second, it felt like the past folding into the present. She noticed me before I could decide whether to stand. A small pause, then that same quiet smile. "Still early," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Still stubborn," I replied. It was easy again somehow. The awkwardness had evaporated, replaced by something lighter, not absence, but acceptance. She looked rested. Softer, like she'd stopped bracing for something that never came. We talked about simple things. The weather, her daughter's job, my new design project. She asked if I'd finally stopped overworking my shoulder. I lied, and she pretended to believe me. At one point, the barista came over and asked, "Your usual, Mira?" She nodded, then glanced at me. "You still take it black?" "Always." Our eyes met, not the way they used to, not charged or cautious, but knowing. A kind of warmth that had learned how to stay quiet. After a while, we walked outside. The air smelled like rain again. She pulled her scarf tighter, and without thinking, I reached out and straightened it for her. She didn't pull away. We stood there, facing the empty clinic across the street. The sign was gone now, the windows covered. I wondered if she missed it. The sound of the clock, the smell of eucalyptus, the rhythm of her own quiet routine. Do you ever think about that time? I asked. She smiled faintly. Sometimes. But not the way I used to. How do you think about it now? She paused, watching the sky shift from gray to blue. Like something that mattered, even if it wasn't meant to last the same way. I nodded. I think about it too. Mostly when I can't sleep. It helps, I said. It reminds me what being seen felt like. She looked at me then, really looked, and that was it. No apology, no confession. Just the smallest reach of her hand brushing mine, like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. I didn't move. Didn't need to. The moment was already fully left. When she finally left, she turned once at the corner and lifted her thermos slightly. A small, wordless toast. I raised my coffee cup in return. The steam drifted between us like a breath we'd both finally learned to let go.